All right, well, welcome in everybody here. Got a great guest on Zach Bigelow, Northern Colorado's finest, out there in Fort Collins, Colorado, rocking his Broncos gear and his Believe gear. Zach, welcome in. Let everybody know where they can find you, man. I mean, I know you got some great stuff, and talk about the guy that you have that breaks down all of the depth charts for free. I mean, great stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. You can find me mostly on X. I'm previewing every P4 team and also showing how I value their roster. And if you really like what you're seeing for every team, there's a link in my bio. It's free. I actually have some modeling efforts that are taking a combination of a lot of different things to determine what's the value of this player in 2026. You can also see their snaps, what school they played at, and their stats for 2025. For me, I really think like there's so many modeling tools out there anymore that it's really difficult anymore to find an edge, right? So continuing to do things like look at staff ratings and quantifying the value of a staff member to a team, which I really lean on, and then using this to like really understand the value of a roster and how they're matching up to somebody, I think can really help people, stay ahead, stay sharp, find edges. And so like to put that in the universe to help everybody. But excited to be here, man. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely awesome. So if you're a novice bettor, definitely check stuff like that out. Even if you're a skilled bettor, I mean, he's doing all the work for you. It's great. It's right there. College football, we always say, is great because of the volume of games, but then it's also so hard to keep up with, right? Like, I mean, not everybody, you're not going to make any money just bet Michigan, Ohio State, or Ohio State, Texas. You got to get kind of that edge on the more obscure games, and having something like that is perfect. So as a college football fan, thank you for putting that together. So, obviously, being out in Colorado State country, we'll get into the coaches right after this. But first year in the Pac-12, right, for Colorado State, and think they have any chance of making any noise at all.
I like to be an eternal optimist. I'm really excited about the hire with Jim Mora. I think historically this is a program that spends more than a lot of the other G6 teams, and just kind of hasn't, for whatever reason, been able to make it work. But yeah, I think Jim Mora brings something really exciting to the team, at least like a consistency level that I'm excited for the future. I'm really excited about the quarterback they brought in. This dude, if you don't know, hope I get his name right, Haas. He can fly. He started at TCU, then transferred to Oklahoma State. Injuries held him back last year. It's not like he's a big part of that reason why they went 1-11. But if we saw what Jim Mora doesn't have the same offensive coordinator, but did last year with Vignano, I mean, they are able to really put together efficient quarterback play. And so with this guy and a ton of speed, I'm excited to see what they're able to do. So tough schedule, right? It's not very easy for his first year up in Fort Collins. And then kind of entering is like probably where people rate in the bottom half of that conference. But forever hopeful for the Rams, at least for the future. And like any more in this transfer era, I think year one is turning into more of a year zero, right? And you have to build that foundation and bring in those new players. And so typically what I've been studying is that leap anymore is coming from the second year of a head coach. So man, get bowling would be huge this year. If the Rams could, that'd go way over that win total. I've been really tempted to bet that over 3.5, but I can't tell if that's my heartstrings pulling or if I really feel good about that. My modeling numbers do predict that, but with so much roster turnover, sometimes that's hard to really model out, like at the G6 at the lower level. So you really just have to say, like, is there a quarterback and do I trust the head coach? Which I do, but haven't played it yet.
Well, I'm on Air Force over their win total. So if they play Colorado State could go over. Just don't beat Air Force. So we're good to go there for the Battle of Colorado. But yeah, as you mentioned, Jim Moore, I mean, one of just many, many, many coaching changes in the college football landscape. And Zach, last year I was doing this with Sam Panayotovich, and I gave him a number of over under 5.5 coaches fired in the regular season. I remember it's soared over. I mean, we had the 3-1 weekend with Deshaun Foster. The Pride, I think Brent Pride, Virginia Tech's coach, and I forget the other, Mike Gundy, all three of those, and then we saw that go over. So a lot of big movement here with guys like Alex Golish, James Franklin, um, you know, uh, Ryan Satterfield or Springfield or whatever his name is at Arkansas. Just a lot of different ones. What is your kind of like the big ones that I like are James Franklin, love Bob Chesney over at UCLA, and then I love the kind of Eric Morris and Alex Golish hires. Which ones are you kind of like most intrigued by? Which ones do you like the best?
You definitely have my top one at Bob Chesney. Like, I'm really excited about that one. I think people were excited about that hire early, and then I think like the news on UCLA has kind of weaned, and like you haven't had people be as excited about that as I might have thought. I mean, this guy has won everywhere that he's gone, and what he did at Holy Cross was impressive. But we're talking about a guy that was in the playoffs last year. I know it was, with James Madison, and then they got kind of smoked by Oregon, but they really had everybody sweating their spread bets on that one, and they were competitive, and I liked what they did there. So I think he's also really got the boosters behind him, increased in spending. And it's such an increase when you look at my model about how I feel about the change in staff there. So yeah, Chesney's one of my favorite ones. I actually played UCLA money line in that first game against Cal when you could still get that at plus money. I'm pretty sure that's flipped now, and that's at Cal. Cal is now the underdog, I think, at like 1.5. So excited about that one, week one. I really love the Eric Morris hire, what he did at the FCS level, then what he did with North Texas. And then I think another interesting part about that is if you're Oklahoma State, you're not getting a quarterback like Mestamaker if he turns out to be what everybody expects without making that hire. So I think that's a really smart move. I think his whole staff that comes over is really excited. So I like that one as well. I like Kyle Whittingham a ton at Michigan. I think that could be really interesting because of all the drama that went on in that room with Sharon Moore. And like you hear some nightmare stories, and Kyle Whittingham, I think one of his, like my favorite off-season clips of him is defending Bryce Underwood. Not that I want to defend Bryce Underwood, but a great head coach he would. And he said, this guy didn't even have a consistent weekly committed quarterback coach last year, so who knows what he could do. So my model really likes that lift there from that entire staff, because not only do I grade that one of the highest coaching changes from a head coaching standpoint, you also get to bring in Jason Beck as the offensive coordinator. And that is my highest incoming grade of any coordinator this whole cycle. So I really like that move as well. And then my final one is, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, Will Stein at Kentucky. My model really, really likes him and likes that hire a lot. And talking out both sides of my mouth. So when the Broncos drafted Bo Nix, I watched that Pac-12 championship game because I wasn't super excited about the draft pick. Bo Nix turned out to be pretty good for the Broncos, but I remember going back and watching that through the coach's lens, and I hated the play calling in that game. And remember, that has kind of been the thing about that Oregon staff is when they play the same team twice in a season, right? They always take the L that second game. So that's something that staff really has to get over. And that he was the offensive coordinator for that. Like, I was really disappointed. No creativity, no uniqueness, but I know he has it in him. The only thing that sucks is I don't know if he's going to call the plays, and I hate his offensive coordinator hire, Joe Sloan. He taught the offensive coordinator hire that couldn't do anything with Nussmeier at LSU last year, but he really won me over at SEC Media Days when they asked him why is Kentucky going to win with you here, and it's like, because of me. So yeah, those are the ones I really like.
Well, I was on Kentucky money line against Texas last year, and they broke my heart with that. I still covered the +10, but all you got to do is get in from the one. Get in from the one, and you knock off Arch Manning in Texas, and maybe Sark gets fired. Who knows? But yeah, that was the expectations at a school like UCLA and a school like Kentucky are very, very minimal. I know obviously boosters can change things, and given the era that you said, but exactly what you said about Chesney is what we heard about a guy named Kirk Cignetti, and we saw what he did. Right, all the guy does is win. We heard that about a Kalen DeBoer who got to the national title game. All he does is win at whatever level. So if Chesney follows suit there, the next step could be getting to the national title game. So really, really like that a lot. I know kind of the notes I sent you beforehand, you're not as high on Franklin or Golish. Just my thoughts on Franklin is what he did at Penn State is more than good enough at Virginia Tech. If you just win 9-10 games, no disrespect to Virginia Tech, the Beamer era anymore, you should be thrilled to win 9-10 games with a guy like Franklin and just be on the periphery of maybe making the college football playoff, depending on how you do in the ACC, if you don't have to play Miami or whoever one year. That's my thought on why I love the hire, but give us your thoughts on maybe why it's not one that you love as much. Same thing with Golish.
Yeah, my model just kind of grades Franklin out as average. I mean, he did a lot, and that's probably really insulting to him. And you're talking to a guy who really wants Virginia Tech to win. I vividly remember being left at home one day when my parents went off and did something, and I turned on ESPN2 and watched this guy named Michael Vick. And like, my parents came home and I said, buy me anything Virginia Tech you can find. Of course, the first thing they found was a Barbie doll. So the first thing I had was a Virginia Tech cheerleader Barbie doll. But hey, so the fandom's there. And I think you get a really high floor with Franklin. I do. And that's probably, like you said, he's going to be there a long time. they'll put up a statue of him. They can't rename the stadium, and he'll do great things just because the influx of roster talent is always going to be so strong there. So it's not that I don't like it. It's just not one of my favorites. Goalish, I want to like a lot. I will say I didn't like it initially when it happened, just kind of gut instinct reaction. And then I was looking at my model numbers, same thing, just like slightly above average grade, so not ideal. But you read about this guy and his history from Russia, and his family left the Soviet Union. And then every time he gets on a mic and drops a nugget about what his dad taught in his childhood, it's like, hell, I'm rooting my ass off for you, buddy. I want him to do well. So I think USF, you always have a little more than everybody else in that conference. So you would have liked to see him just do a little more over that tenure, I think is what my model is looking at when it thinks that. And so, yeah, you're going to have to do more with less in the SEC at Auburn. So we'll see how that, again, don't hate it, just not one of my favorites.
Well, one that I just thought of that I'm sorry I didn't prepare you for this, but I was just thinking about. So we saw a school like Tulane. Obviously, you get Willie Fritz goes from Tulane to a bigger job, and then you got John Summerall going from Tulane to a bigger job. You got Billy Napier doing the opposite, going from Florida, basically switching places with Summerall there. What do you think of Tulane? Like, is that a good hire? Like, do you like a coach kind of stepping down after that? I know he was at Louisiana before going to Florida. What do you think about that hire for them? And is that going to be kind of a stepping stone for him, or is he just that kind of guy that like maybe he's good in that kind of conference?
So like Billy Napier, that's the hire you're asking about?
Yes.
Yeah, wasn't as excited about that one. Again, just like slightly above average on that one. I do think like if you can understand your lane and like where you fit and where what you does makes sense, you can have a lot of success there. I just would have thought, and maybe James Madison thought they were like, yeah, we're getting the guy that just came out of the SEC. I would have thought you could have gotten somebody just from what you've done and the resources and the playoff run that you just had, that would have been a little more exciting and not a retread. So, yeah, eyebrows up on that one. Don't love it. Model doesn't hate it, but really intrigued to see what he does there.
Oh, well, for some reason I thought he went to Tulane, but yes, he's at JMU. So thank you for that. Tulane.
Okay, yeah, that's what's sort of.
Yeah, Tulane does have the cheapest beer. Tulane does have the cheapest beer prices in the country, from what I heard. So props to them for that. But my apologies on that.
No, you're good. And unfortunately, the Tulane hire, I hate. I am not a fan of what they did there. So that seemed like an easy way out. That is unfortunately one of my like lowest rated staffs, top to bottom. So that's a bummer because huge Willie Fritz guy, right? Houston's one of the teams I'm most high on this year. And then I like Summerall a lot. I'm excited to see what he does with Florida. Florida, I'd be a lot higher on. It just, I have a couple questions about what they're doing at quarterback. I love the offensive coordinator hire. I'm worried he's just going with a guy he trusts and knows as opposed to like what was the best possibility. So intrigued to see how that plays out at Florida. But yes, Tulane, didn't like that one.
And so we have the kind of usual suspects that are on the hot seat. Ones that I actually mentioned on the podcast last year: Mike Norvell, Mike Loxley, Luke Fickell. I don't know how any of them were brought back. I think, there's a good chance that maybe that Wisconsin-Maryland game, neither coach is coaching in that game. I mean, it's in November. There's a good chance that kind of both of them are going to be gone. That's a couple. And then I know there's a couple other ones that, you and I kind of are the same on. One that I've been talking about for years is Dabo Sweeney. And, I'm sorry, I'm not a big rah-rah, like this and that guy. He hasn't adapted. And as crazy as it sounds, Zach, like, if Clemson has another 7-5 year, like, he's not going to get fired, but is it going to be, hey, Dabo, thanks for everything you did, we got to make a change in here? Or is Clemson going to be stubborn and just keep him and be like, hey, he won us national titles?
I think the buyout is too high to do anything after this year. I think if I looked it up, correctly, once you said that, it was $57 million after this season. So yeah, I don't think it's happening this year because of that. But I am with you. When I was doing their season preview, the quote I used was from The Office. Sometimes you wish you knew you were in the good old days before it was too late. And that does kind of feel like what it is with the Clemson era. This transfer portal has not been ideal for him. And I'm the opposite of you. I love a good rah-rah guy and a guy that drops a great clip every now and then. So and Dabo wears his faith on his sleeve, and that's important to me too. So I'm always rooting for Dabo. But yeah, last year I had them as the third best roster using that depth and value chart that you're looking at heading into the season. They're down to 38th now. And he seems to just always roll with his guys, right? I like Chad Morris. He still grades well in my model, but he hasn't called plays in quite a long time. And you wonder if it's the PR move, or I liked the Riley hire and was excited to see what he would do there. And I liked that Dabo went out of his circle to make that hire. But then you hear that, well, the reason Riley wasn't having success is Dabo made him run the Chad Morris stuff. And so who's right there? I really get confused. My thing about Chad Morris is he runs a really fun spread running attack. Like he likes to run the football. That O-line was not good last year. All 5 offensive linemen starters are gone. 0 portal linemen signed to replace them. So yeah, just kind of what you're saying, Dabo, what are you doing? Like you always just want to roll with your guys. I think how I see this playing out is they don't have the money to have him. I don't think they can make him eat that extension. So if it doesn't go well again, I bet they sit him down and they shove portal money down his throat and make him do it a different way. And that still doesn't work out. And unfortunately, I think we're headed toward one of those heartbreak endings where, you either die the hero or live long enough to be the villain. And that's what's going to happen to Dabo. I hope not. I hope that turns it around. I will say he's got some good clips already about the nobody believes in us stuff. I think last 2 days ago, it was, "Gay coach, how's camp going?" or "How are the starters looking?" And he goes, "I don't know. We're just a bunch of nobodies. Nobody cares about us. Nobody believes in us." And I was like, oh God, get the stick going early. I love it. So, and he does that shtick really, really well. So I'm put out that season preview fully prepared to eat crow, but yeah, I don't see it. I think they might go under. I don't even know if they get to 8 wins.
Yeah, that's one that I had circled for under as well too. And I mean, I think a lot of that will play on to how they do in week one. But just a couple more points on that. I don't want to kind of belabor it, but I remember seeing the stat when they lost to Georgia Tech about his record when he's trailing at the half, and it was some like 9-30 or something like that. And to your point, it's like if he doesn't have better players than anyone, can he get the right coaches to make adjustments, or can he take over and be like, hey, I'm making these adjustments in here? And that showed that he couldn't, right? And now losing to the likes of a Syracuse and games that they would never lose in previous years. And it's like, think about the last Clemson skill player drafted, right? I mean, there's other schools that are producing, as many players as Clemson are in the first, second kind of couple of rounds, maybe outside the defensive line. So just things like that have to change in order for you to kind of get back up to the mountaintop. And there's a couple I know you're going to touch on in the Big 12, so we'll shift over to that preview. But one that I want to talk about that I kind of find intriguing, and you could call me, hey Marco, you're an idiot. There's no chance of this happening. If Oklahoma somehow misses the college football playoff this year, they're not happy with mediocrity there. Will they buy Brent Venables out? Because if you look at the seasons prior to when he got John Mateer, they weren't the greatest, and he was supposed to be a good defensive coach. I believe they lost 6 games in the SEC the year before, Mateer. And if given the talent that they have, Mateer coming back and the expectations, if they fall short, is there any way that Venables is out next year?
Yes, I think that could happen. And the early schedule is difficult. So it's one of those things where if the rock gets rolling downhill, you could really get in trouble. All that to say, I am really high on this Oklahoma team, and here's why. How I think about football, if you have a very good offense, play a very good defense, the very good offense is going to win. I think there's a lot of very good defenses and even like really good defenses that are propped up by just always playing bad offenses and taking advantage of that. That said, elite offense versus elite defense, truly elite, give me the defense. And I like what Oklahoma's building, and their defense is elite. Again, last year it was incredible. This year, could it be better? Maybe. And the thing about that is elite defenses always travel, right? The variance isn't there as much with like an elite offense where you're like, you're going to have those 2 games where you just can't click and you have to grind it out. So I kind of like what everybody's doing. I mean, you've seen it start to happen already. Pace of play is slowing down. The game's going away from throwing back to running a little bit more. Like it's this beautiful cycle of the game football that we always see. And so right now I think is a good time to be investing into being an elite defensive program and being able to win there. So I actually have them going back to the playoff. I'm a big believer in Oklahoma this year. You have to imagine healthy Mateer, they take a leap this year. I will gouge my eyes out if they can't run the football again. Like that's just unacceptable in Norman. Yeah, so could happen. Yes. Oklahoma won't put up with that. Like 6-7 wins if the wheels fall off early is something that could happen and they have to move on, especially if you lose Red River again and you keep that losing streak going. But I'm confident about them. Seems like they're due in Red River. Elite defenses travel, play consistently week to week. Oklahoma back to the playoffs.
Before we get to the Big 12 preview, I just want to ask you, so November 13th in College Park, Maryland, November 14th, you have Wisconsin coming to College Park. Will both coaches, Mike Loxley and Luke Fickell, be at the game or be coaching their teams, or will there only be one or none or both?
So I think Loxley will Loxley. So what that means is like he'll win a bunch of games early, and then we'll get an inflated win season total. And for the third year in a row, we're all going to hit the live under on those season win total, and we're going to cash. So he'll still be probably building that momentum. Malik Washington will still be looking good at quarterback, so he'll keep it rolling. Fickell, I think the schedule is too easy. I still have them going under. I think everybody does this thing. Season win totals come out, who has the easiest schedule. And then because everybody has that in their brain that the schedule is easy, right? And they're like, oh, I think this could be an over team, just schedule only. They kind of start to inflate the talent. I do think he makes it through the year. I don't think he makes it at the end of the year. I have Wisconsin going over and that marriage ending. Or Wisconsin going under and that marriage ending, sorry.
There you go. Yeah, even with Colton Joseph coming in, I mean, if you can't win with the best quarterback that you've had there, then that says everything you need to, especially being an offensive guy. But so we'll shift over to a conference preview on the Big 12. Very, very intriguing. I know we mentioned a couple previous Big 12 tie-ins here, especially Oklahoma and the Red River rivalry. Texas Tech's to lose, obviously here. A team that I do like is kind of Oklahoma State. We mentioned Morris earlier, Menster-Mocker. I think that's a live over win total team, to your point, because they got to get the defense going early. We're going to see how that offense, kind of goes into playing better competition. Maybe grab them at a lower number early in the season, early in the season for later, because they're going to be a team that no one wants to play. So, Texas Tech's to lose. Give us maybe some other contenders. I know you like TCU. Tell us about TCU as like kind of your best value play.
Yeah, I think people forget this team was playing for a national championship not too long ago, right? And yeah, we know how that game ended up, but Sonny Dykes can coach ball. He knows what he's doing. And I know half of marriages end in divorce, but I'm really excited about the marriage he has with his new offensive coordinator and Gordon Samus, the guy that came over from UConn. I talked about Fignano earlier, the quarterback last year at UConn, when I talked about Jim Mora. His efficiency numbers were insane. And I don't think anybody in the country really saw that coming. I mean, you could have made more of an argument that he should have been in New York for the Heisman presentation, not won it, but like what he did was really, really, really impressive. And so marrying what Sonny Dykes has always done on offense with Gordon, I think will be really interesting. Gordon Samus is more of a run guy, traditionally known as an offensive line coach. On top of that, TCU does have its best offensive and defensive lines maybe he's ever had when Sonny Dykes in there. And I didn't just live with linemen in college when I played college football because they know the best places to get food at 2 a.m., but because the game's won in the trenches, right? And I always want to depend on guys I always want to bet on teams that I know are going to do really, really well in the trenches. I think the wide receiver room has a sneaky bunch of potential, so they could end up doing good. Like, I'm blown away. I know it's juiced to like minus 150 at BetMGM, but 6.5 still for TCU is insane to me. My model has like them a full win over that. So I'd take them at 6.5 at that 6.5 number for sure. And then if you're feeling saucy, what you do is whatever you put down to win on that bet, what you would potentially win, then go and take it and put it on over 7.5, which is juiced. You can get that to like a plus 125, plus 135. And then sprinkle 1,700, 20 to 1, I think, for them to win the conference is really, really good there too. So it will probably come down to the quarterback. The kid from Harvard, I like him a lot. I actually think he's really, really intriguing. I watched some game film of him. He's big, strong, will run. Again, fits with that Fignano mold from Samus, the new offensive coordinator. The one blemish on him is as soon as they made the playoffs and went up in talent, it was bad. There's a huge roster disparity, though. The Ivy League traditionally, doesn't fit into that mold. So you take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, I'm really, really high on TCU this year.
On FanDuel, the over is at minus 178. So you're right, it is completely juiced. And let's hope that they don't lose that Ireland game, because we all saw what happens to the loser of that game, Florida State. Who was it last year? It was Kansas State, who I actually like Kansas State's over win total this year. They're my kind of team to watch, just strictly for the fact that their schedule is what looks to be kind of a cakewalk right there. And obviously with the new coach, Colin Klein, you got to figure that they're going to be a little bit better. But talk to me about Colorado. And, I know we talked about coaches that, could be on the hot seat. I think one is Dave Aranda. And I also said possibly Dion, and you said, hey, no way. So tell me about Colorado. Do you like them specifically week 1 against Georgia Tech getting the points?
I took that +8. I think you can still find some 7.5s, maybe some 7s. If you could get a 7.5, I would play it. Okay, Colorado. Again, a little biased here. High school all-state football player in the state of Colorado. All I wanted to do was go play for the black and gold. Wasn't quite good enough there. So I've, always, I just love college football, especially after playing and coaching. I kind of fall out of love with an individual team, but there's a couple that still pull on your heartstrings. So I really like Colorado. Here's my thing with Colorado. Love-hate relationship with Dion. I'm disappointed in Dion. Like, what it takes to run a P4 program. And I don't think he does the hard things. He preaches that he wants his players to do, but he doesn't do the nitty-gritty things in and out. Maybe you want to give him some grace last year because of the health stuff. I get that. I think what's really intriguing, though, is the hire of Brennan Marion, because if you don't know his story, this is a guy who lived in the stadium or locker room through his junior college career, was absolutely broke, then made it to the University of Tulsa. Probably would have been a name you guys knew about in the NFL, but he blew his knee out his senior year, setting a bunch of receiving records. He was a really, really talented player. So then he had to go into coaching. He's grinded every step of the way from low ball high school up to college, was a P4 position coach, coaching receivers, Pitt, then Texas. Then he went to UNLV on the offensive coordinator. We all fell in love with the go-go offense. Oh, I'm missing one stop before that, an FCS stop. Then he went to Sac State. Here's the thing with Brendan Marion. He is determined. There are very few people, I think, in life that are more determined than him, and he wants to be a big-time P4 head coaching job. I think part of the appeal of bringing in Brennan is Dion can go be prime and do his hot mics and motivate the guys and get the spotlight. And Brennan's an asshole. I don't know if we're allowed to curse on this one. Sorry. He'll hold you accountable. He's going to make people do things the way he wants to do it. And I think he's doing a lot more than being the offensive coordinator there. I think he's borderline the assistant head coach. Deion Sanders might be the public head coach, and borderline Brennan's the private head coach. So all that to say, last year was a nightmare because there weren't enough adults in the room. Brennan Marion might be that guy, right? And I think from what I've heard, right, people have been a little afraid to not be a yes man to prime. I don't think Brennan Marion's doing that. He's too determined to do what he do. So all that, they did really, really well in the portal. They added a bunch of a more established talent than historically what they've done on give me your failed 5-star guys. I'm Dion. I'll connect with them on a human level and I'll get them to work hard and do good. So I go look at the depth and value chart. I grade Juju Lewis. It's not because I'm excited about the quarterback. I have him at a 47 on a scale of 1 to 99. But that roster is still significantly better than what I have a year ago and rated very, very highly. Somehow they still can have a great wide receiver room. Maybe they'll finally have an offensive line that can actually do things. I'm intrigued by what Brennan does with that go-go offense at a bigger level. I like what they have on the defensive side of the ball to at least be competitive, right? Because they got proven G6 talent. I just listened to someone today, I don't really know who it was, talking about how Georgia Tech's going to run it right down their throats and just ruin that ball game for the boys from Boulder. Last year they would have. I think it's changed. All that to say, I still don't trust Dion. My model leans over. I like the roster that they brought in. I just gave you that whole speech on Brandon Marion. I'll give you week 1, and I'll give you 8 points against Georgia Tech to earn back my trust, but not bankroll for the entire season on a win total.
And I'm a Coach Prime fan. I loved kind of the energy that he brought when he did there. The human piece of it. I mean, Dion gets a bad rap, but just hey, I'm molding these guys into men. I love that. You know what I mean? But you got to deliver at some point, and so hopefully they do. For this, because Colorado is a great program. Historically, Colorado being good. I remember watching Colorado, Nebraska, in the Big 8, then the Big 12. It was the day after Thanksgiving, pretty much every year. So really, really want them to get back. And one of your biggest disappointment that you listed, almost lost their coach. Crumble Cookies came in and kind of saved the day there, but Kalani Sitake was the hot name for the Penn State job. Don't think he was ever really going to leave. And I know BYU was kind of people's darlings, but also how are they winning the game? Kind of smoke and mirrors there. And I do know they have Notre Dame on their schedule this year, not a conference game, but still affects the win-loss record. So tell us about BYU. Their over/under is 8.5, and it's juiced higher to the over, but I assume you like the under there.
So I wrote that wrong. It's my personal disappointment. I messed that up because that was one of the first teams I previewed this year, because I interviewed to join Kalani's staff at BYU. Not getting to be the director of football operations there is one of the biggest what ifs of my life, because we were together at Oregon State. I love Kalani. When I did that first preview, 2 things scared me: Bear Bachmeier's passing development, and where is the talent in the receiving room. At the time, I think you could get over 8.5 at like plus 110, and I leaned that way, but I didn't play it. I should have, obviously. The market's proven me wrong and to be an idiot. And the more I deep dive this team in the Big 12, the talent's just so much better every there. I really trust the staff and what they're going to be able to do. And if you go back and look at BYU, they always have these big, tall, lanky receivers that nobody really knew about and was excited about. And then they come out and get 50, 60 balls. So they only went and got one guy from the portal who fits that mold exactly. He's a kid from Oregon. He's huge. He's like 6'6". That means they know they have what they need to be successful. And Bear Bachmeier, remember, he was at Stanford first. And then when the Jake stuff happened and he had to go to Tulane, he steps in, doesn't have a spring ball, right? Comes in the summer. He only has fall camp to get ready. And what he did last year, he did as a true freshman. So yes, I worry about them stacking the box, even though they have good old line and LJ Martin coming back and forcing Bear to beat them throwing the ball. Go watch the bowl game. Bear lit it up. They needed to come back. He aired it out. He can do it. I probably didn't give him enough grace in the positive development that's coming for him. So I'm not playing it now because it became juiced too much. I just don't like to tie up my bankroll that long on something that I don't absolutely love when it's juiced that high. But BYU, probably back to the conference championship game unless my favorite team doesn't get there.
And that being said, outside of Texas Tech, does this conference get a second team in the college football playoff?
Ooh, I don't think so. I think the SEC and the Big Ten will eat up too many of those spots for them to get in there. The one I really like, though, that could do it is Houston. I'm really, really high on Houston. I think you could get a chance to win the conference tournament. I looked right before this. I think it was plus 1,600 was the best number out there. There might have been a plus 1,800. I had a hard time reading their notes. This is one of the biggest leaps in roster value that I have. This is actually the second best roster I have in the Big 12. And then that I love the staff, right? Willie Fritz and what he does there with his staff. I think what people forget is last year their win total was 5.5. They went 10-3 last year, counting their bowl win over Texas. And so when you look at the roster this year, and this is the power of the depth and value tool, it gives you a snapshot of this year's roster compared to what we projected them to be in the preseason last year. And when you look at that leap, yeah, it's huge. And what that leap comes from is not like we were idiots and we didn't see it coming. It comes from staff developing players. And so if Willie Fritz can do that year over year, right? They had NFL draft picks at the D line. Go back and read Phil Steele's magazine or one of those magazines from last year. They weren't talking about that D line doing those things. So I think now everybody thinks there is a roster, but they're like, regression. They won so many one-score games. No, I think Fritz only develops them even better. Connor Wegman, when push came to shove, they really started using his legs in the second half of the year, senior year. What's the quote from Waterboy? Because they didn't hold anything back, right? You unleash Wegman now and you go for it. So I have a tracked Houston over 7.5. I think it was at minus 160. I know that's gone, but I would still take them at over 8.5. And then, like I said, I think that's your long shot to win the Big 12. I will say the best to win a conference future out there is still Texas Tech plus 100. Take whatever you want to get your wife or your girlfriend for Christmas, put half of that into that bet right now, then you'll cash that out when they win the conference championship and you just got your wife's Christmas present 50% off. But if you get plus 1,600 and Houston gets there, right, then you can do some hedging and still come out really clean on that one. So yeah, I love that play.
Yeah, I feel like after Texas Tech, it's going to be like it was a couple of years ago where you look at the odds from the conference leader to eighth place was like this, right? So it's like these teams are going to beat up on each other, and there's other conferences that will get other teams that might have more gaudy records because they're playing a bit easier schedule. So the Big 12 is a very, very intriguing conference, one of my favorites to watch, and I would love to see some drama. I'd love to see them get a second team in there. So very excellent breakdowns. I'm kind of with you on Houston as well.
I think the reason they don't get that second team is some of the teams I'm so excited to watch this year are at the bottom of that conference. I think West Virginia is playing Moneyball, right? They know what Rich Rod is. They want to run the ball, have an athletic quarterback, so they don't have to spend a bunch of money at wide receiver talent. I really liked what they did on their roster. I'm excited to see Hawkins at quarterback there. So And if you have to travel from all the way to West Virginia, we've kind of seen those longer trips mess things up. So like West Virginia is going to pull a couple sneaky upsets. Scott Frost in year 2, I talked about it earlier, right? Anymore, year 1 is a year 0. We have to rebuild the culture. UCF, I cannot believe people aren't more high on Alonzo Barnett, and he just took JMU as an absolute dual threat stud to the playoff, showed up in that Oregon game and wasn't afraid. Frost in year 2 plus him. I know he was hurt last year, so maybe that's scaring people away. I think that's an overplay. I think they pull off a couple sneaky upsets. And then like Oklahoma State's still in that second bottom of the half. You know they're going to pull some upsets. Drew Mestamaker, you can't find a bigger stand than me. Arizona State, I still believe in Dillingham a lot, so he's going to pull a couple upsets. So I don't think that after Texas Tech 2 through like 6, that could be that second playoff team is so good that they don't take a couple blemishes and get beat up, just because there's like some sneaky teams at the bottom of the conference that I think can pull up like 1 or 2 upsets each all season long. And then Colorado, right? What if Marion's good and the roster really is better? There's your other upsets.
I know we're running a little bit low on time, but best environment in the Big 12. I heard Texas Tech has like food trucks kind of all around the stadium. Like, how many Big 12 stadiums have you been to, and what is kind of the most underrated environment there? I mean, you mentioned the Bounce House a little bit. Could that be it, or is it a different one?
Bounce House was awesome. Played a Friday night college football game, so like all the students were out there for a smaller environment. That was a really cool environment. Actually, the fans in Tucson at Arizona really showed up, and then the thing about that is it's just hot as hell. So if you show up on the wrong day to play the Wildcats and you're not ready for that, that can absolutely smoke you. Just absolutely smoked Houston the year we won 11 games at Tulsa. It was one of my favorite games of all time. We were leading the nation in sacks at that time, and the quarterback, can't remember who it was, said, "We love when people blitz. Leave somebody open in the secondary. We welcome it." We were up like 49-0 in that game. And then our backup punt returner dropped the punt, and they got a worthless 12-yard touchdown right after that. Broke our defensive coordinator's heart, so we couldn't get one. So, but best environment, Utah, Rice Eccles. That's a passionate fan base. Got my ass kicked there when we were at Oregon State. They really bring it. They pack that house. They bring energy the whole game. Even when we were getting beat up, like they were in it to win it. Just the backdrop, it's a lot like Boulder and Folsom Field. You've got the mountains in there. It's a really cool thing. But like the passion and energy those guys bring, give me Rice Eccles.
Yeah, and I mean, that 11 a.m. kickoff sometimes is crazy. I mean, I think that was Utah, Texas Tech was the 11 a.m. kickoff, and that place was insane. So excellent call on that one. So we'll skip over to, I guess, week 1 0 bets. And I didn't do this because you're a Tulsa guy. One of my favorite plays in the week 1 0 bet, I have Oklahoma State team total, possibly laying the points against Tulsa, but I think it might take them a while to get going. But that offense, I think, is going to go up and down the field. The defense, I question, so maybe a game over there. I also like USC to just lay the wood week 1. That's not a game that they kind of lose. I think Lincoln Riley's going to come out and prove a point. And then I love NC State getting the points against Virginia. Now that the game is not in Brazil, they're going to Charlottesville. I believe it's there instead of Raleigh, but I'm not sold on Virginia. Love CJ Bailey. Tell me if you like any of those plays and give us one that you might love.
I love the Oklahoma State number. I think head coaches, offensive gurus, their first game, they want to make a splash, right? So I think you're absolutely right. And you can't find a bigger Drew Mestamaker fan. Quick nugget there. He didn't start any games in high school as a starting quarterback, right? And so what's his ceiling, right? Because that's definitely a position that's the 10,000 hour mastery rule. So just really one full season as a starter under his belt. I know the stats against tougher competition. I still think he takes a leap. So yeah, I think they come out scoring. I actually got that minus 11.5 Oklahoma State when it first opened, which shows how early we have to get started anymore. I think I made that bet on Father's Day. So that's how long ago that was. Nice. I think I just saw right before this, that's always up to Tulsa plus 15.5. I really do like Tulsa, but I'm really, really excited about that minus 11.5. USC to lay the wood. Yep. I think that one's moved a little bit. So as long as you got that number early, that's good. What's Virginia, NC State up to? Do you know off the top of your head?
I saw 5.5. It actually went down from 6.5 is what I saw that it opened up. But FanDuel had 5.5.
Yeah. So I was kind of thinking I would sit around and wait for this one, see if a 6 could pop on NC State, because I do kind of agree with you. But I just did my season preview of Virginia. I was deep diving it again. That's actually a really good roster. And the downgrade only really comes at quarterback. Conversely, NC State doesn't have a great roster. That's really stacked up by CJ Bailey. So I don't know, kind of intrigued about that one. Jury's out. We'll have to see. I'll watch the number as it gets closer. I think you can still find this at Hard Rock. I played it yesterday. Probably my favorite early season game, Jacksonville State plus 8.5 versus North Dakota State. Know the hype about North Dakota State and them coming back from the FCS to the FBS, and they'll be hosting this game. But there's a lot to be excited about on that Jacksonville State roster. They really surprised me last year with that new staff and what they came in there and did. I think they only built on that. I really think they can keep that inside of a one-score game, and that will be a lot more competitive than that. So I like Jacksonville State. Most places you could only find a 7 or a 7.5. So that 8.5 still sitting out there. If you can find that, there's a lot of value in that one. Couples other that I like out. I threw out UCLA. I really like them money line. So if you can still grab them at like a -1.5, I will take that. Colorado +8. I really like that one a lot. You play so many things so early anymore. Oh, here's another team I'm really high on that not enough people are talking about. I really love Wake Forest.
Yep.
I thought everybody thought they were going to get their teeth kicked in last year, and then they beat Kennesaw State first week of the year 10-9, and they're like, yep, see, told you they're not going to be any good. They really finished strong how they played the last year. And again, remember, like that thought of like a year 0, year 2 is really the year you get it going. This is that bump that you would expect out of Dickert. Again, I think the roster's better this year. Shame on you, Freddie Kitchens, for what you did to Gio Lopez. And why do good head coaches hire bad coordinators anymore? Oh, worst hire this offseason, Tim Beck. They hired the wrong Tim Beck at USF. I want to be excited about Brian Hartline and all that talent there. And then you hire quite possibly my lowest rated offensive coordinator in my staff. Like, why do people do that? So I know I forgot what we were talking about. Where was I going with that?
Akron, I believe.
Oh, yeah. So I love Wake. Gio Lopez plays for Freddie Kitchens last year. Freddie ruins him. He does bad. Gio's back with the offensive coordinator that originally recruited him and had him at South Alabama. I think that roster talent's better than ever. Akron, actually do kind of like them in the MAC this year and some of the things that they do. It's really, really intriguing what they're doing at quarterback. The quarterback they had is Reese Poffenbarger. He was at Miami, then he lost the job to Cam Ward, then he goes to North Texas, then he loses the job to Drew Mestemaker. So he's been behind some studs. There's a lot of potential there. You're kind of betting on like a what if, but the thought is like he should be a really, really good MAC player. And they've got a great running back, great wide receiver. So like I get the Akron thing. I just am so excited about Wake. How I think about that game is, what did Wake look like against Delaware last year at the end of the season? They smoked them. They covered a huge number. So this is -22.5. I would play Wake. Also, Akron is doing a raffle where if you win the season tickets, you get to be the offensive coordinator for that game. So like nice. First drive is called by a fan. So it's thrown out the window, right? And so there's that distraction. So yeah, I think Wake Forest rolls -22.5. I'd play that up to anything under -24.
Yeah, and I just want to tell people, if you're out to eat on Thursday, September 3rd, ask the bartender or server to put on the UMass Rutgers game and just kind of see the look on their face. And when everyone else is like, wait, you're having us put that on the TV? But, UMass might be the worst team in college football this year. So curious to see if they win, more than one game there. But maybe give people some advice for week 1 and 0. I know things have changed a lot in the last few years. Obviously, none of these teams are really going to have returners, right? Whether it's coach or starting quarterback or whatever. How's that changed you as a bettor in week 0 and week 1? And what advice would you give besides maybe be cautious? Is there any other advice that you'll give to like bettors for these first 2 weeks?
So week 0 to week 4 is the hardest. And therefore, if you put in the work, it's where you can be successful. Last 3 years, I've been tracking it. I should probably maybe hang up betting after week 4. I'm like, a little up from week 5 to the end of the year when everybody's model converges and we're betting on the same information. But week 0 through week 4, like that's when I've been able to make my most money, because anymore with all the turnover on staffs and rosters, like you can't model that. It's really, really difficult. A lot of people throw in the towel on their modeling efforts now and just do like a market-based modeling system where they're just looking at everybody's win totals and the opening lines. And then from there, like that's the baseline to like, oh, what is Vegas thinking of this team as a power rating? And then going from there. So if you can put in the work and look for those roster turnovers, that's how I found Oklahoma State -11.5, right? As an example, what I did was I didn't even think about Oklahoma State when I was setting that line. I started from the standpoint of what would I make North Texas at Tulsa to the end of last year? And then from there, I look at how they improved and changed their rosters, North Texas molding into Oklahoma State and then Tulsa just evolving. And that's how I got really comfortable of like minus 11 and a half. I think I played it like closer to minus 16 and a half when I wrote it in my notes. So that was a no brainer. So don't chase potential over production. There's plenty of like proven resources out there. So don't get really excited about something that you don't know anything about. And then do the work, see who really improved from a coordinator standpoint, see who really improved from a roster standpoint. And that's where you're able to find your edges and win early. So it's more work, but it's rewarded, right? The work cannot be done by an AI yet or by a computer in a model. So if you'll do the work and do the handicapping yourself, how did a roster change? How do a staff change? You can find your edges and you can win that way.
And based on this love that we're giving to Oklahoma State, I think you and I should get VIP treatment at Boone Pickens in Stillwater. I mean, if they're watching us in Stillwater, they're going to be like, "Who are these two guys?" So, yeah, Zach, great stuff. Again, let everybody know where they can find you. And just he mentioned the work he put in. I mean, it's a great resource for free in week one. Obviously, I'm going to plug it, but it is, you did the work, you did the research for everybody. It is a great tool. So thank you again for doing that, and just let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, so find me on X, Coach Biggs CFB. And then during the season, if you want to see some written analysis and some plays, I got to give a shout out to my boy, Tyler Shoemaker. So my background, I was a college football player, then a college coach. Got out of coaching, was like, sweet, going to print money gambling. I know football better than anybody else. Got my teeth kicked in, met Tyler. He taught me modeling and power ratings and how you actually handicap a line. So he's kind of been my mentor in this space ever since then. So now I'm finally contributing on his site. So you can find us and my written write-ups at tshoeindex.com this fall.
And hopefully on here during college football season at some point too, right?
100%, man. Anytime awesome. A chance to talk ball, we're going to talk ball.
Well, I appreciate it. Great stuff. And hope to see you again. And let's go Pokes, right?
That's right. Let's go.
I'm going to say that. They shoot the guns in the air. That's second. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Marco.
Bye. And